Welcome back to the Badger247 show, part of the 247 Sports Network. Once again, I'm Matt Perkins, running a little two-man game today here with John McNamara, writer at Badger247.com. Lots of news going around the Badgerverse these days, John, but the biggest of all that is Chris McIntosh officially announcing that Luke Fickell will be back for 2026, putting to bed any questions about at least the immediate future of the coaching staff, or at least the head coach of the Wisconsin Badgers moving forward. A lot of fans aren't super happy about this. I think a lot of fans are wanting a change. I still expect the student section of Madison to be chanting "Fire Fickell" and probably also chanting "Fire McIntosh" this weekend. I'm not going to lie. I saw something online. You know how they have the pins. I always say like beat Iowa, beat Michigan, whatever. Now there's a "Fire Fickell" pin that looks just like that. So it's going to be interesting here these last 4 weeks, John. But the Badgers have Washington at home this weekend. It looks like it's going to be an absolutely miserable day. Cold, rainy. I guess my first question for you, John, I'm just going to look at this game quickly. How many people do you think will show up in Camp Randall?
Yeah. Well, I know that it will be less than whatever they officially put out there. Usually they're very generous in what they report as the official number. But yeah, for all the reasons you talked about, Matt, in addition to the weather, right, I don't know what that's going to look like, or what a really poor first half will look like for the second half. Yeah, it's just kind of one of the issues that is going on at Wisconsin right now that's interwoven into the bigger picture stuff. I don't think that Chris McIntosh's announcement on Thursday is going to bring more people to the stands, and I think it might actually have the opposite effect, if I'm, being real honest with you. But, like you talked about, we have that clarity now, right? And I think if you were on our board for the last 6 weeks, Nick and I came on pretty consistently and said, this is what we're hearing. And it always sounded like they were going to make an effort to get Luke Fickell to year 4. That is now going to be the case. I do think there are some positives with that. I know we'll get into more of the stuff as the show kind of goes on, but clarity in the locker room, right? I think, you're dealing with the guys in the locker room. That's probably the most important thing. Clarity in the 26 class, which they have 14 commits right now, and they're trying to add a few more before signing day on December 3rd. And then you go into the portal season with these guys understanding who their head coach will be next year. Should they transfer in? Should they transfer out? So, there are some positives to this. I know that largely the fan base is not receiving this well. I think this is the third time Chris McIntosh has come out in support. But I'll end with this. These two have always felt tied at the hip. Now more so than ever, it seems like they are going to succeed or fail together. I don't see Chris McIntosh making another football hire at this school. If this does go south, I think they will ride together, or they will crash together. Many people feel they have already crashed. That is not the case, but it's going to go into 26, and we'll have to have that conversation once we get there to next spring camp, I suppose.
Yeah, I think the best case scenario here is we look at Virginia with Tony Elliott, and he had a rough couple seasons. Now, they obviously had a huge tragedy on their team when 3 of their players were senselessly killed. But they had a lot of poor results in the field. A lot of people were saying that maybe he wasn't cut out for this job. And then you look at this season, and they're undefeated in ACC play. They've got 1 loss. They're winning a lot of close games. They're playing well together. And I think that is sort of, if you want to find silver linings or whatever metaphor you want to use, that is sort of the upside here, right? You get that, consistency. You have an easier schedule next year. No Ohio State, no Oregon, no Michigan. And yes, I mean, it's the Big Ten. It's always going to be tough. You still got Iowa, Penn State, Minnesota, a couple other teams, USC again next year. But I think that if I'm just trying to take a guess into what's going into Chris McIntosh's head, I think he sees that. And he also sees that he made as big a swing as he was going to take when hiring Luke Fickell and cutting against the grain of what Wisconsin has done for the past 30 plus years. And he's the captain of that ship, and he's going to go down with that ship if it doesn't work. And so we thought this year was kind of a prove it year for Fickell, but next year is that times 100. And it really comes down to, can this team actually show that they can compete with not just the upper echelon with the Big Ten, but anyone in the Big Ten?
That's what would worry me if I'm a Wisconsin fan going into next year. What is the success that Wisconsin and Chris McIntosh are looking for? Because another big takeaway from Thursday was 3 years ago at this time, they were talking championships. Yesterday, Chris McIntosh said success is measured in ways outside of wins and losses. And that, it was one of the many things that he said to ESPN, and then Jesse Temple obviously had the interview with him. I don't know if that's getting enough play, enough run, or if that was like calculated response by Chris McIntosh. I mean, that is a complete script change from what we heard when this regime started here. And now we're talking, and I don't want to, put words in Chris McIntosh's mouth, but now we're measuring things in other departments when it was, we are doing this to win championships, and now it's not measured in wins and losses. I think worst case scenario for Wisconsin next year, in a schedule that does lighten up considerably, what if they go 6-6 and McIntosh convinces people let's run this back, right? I think that there's a lot more that will go into that, and there's a lot of financials, and there's been reports coming out of the dollar amount that it would cost Madison just in general in terms of game day revenue and everything that goes into that. I think people are speaking with their wallets and their attendance and everything that goes into that. But it would worry me that if they eke out a 6-6 season, that McIntosh would then qualify that as, this is successful, we're going in the right direction. I don't know. It's obviously way too far down the road to look at, but that would worry me as a Wisconsin fan. What qualifies now as successful?
Honestly, for me, anything short of 8-4 is not a success.
I'm in the same boat.
You've got two really tough non-conference games next year in Notre Dame and Pitt. You've got, some tough Big Ten games, but you have to show something, because in 3 years, they haven't even been really competitive with the best teams that they've played. They've been blown out by teams that they should be beating, or at least in the game with. And if you're not measuring success by wins and losses in high level athletics, what are you measuring it by?
Yeah, right.
This isn't 1950.
Exactly. You're exactly right. And there's too much money being put in and being put out and at stake and everything that goes into that. And
the thing is, John, my podcast partner over on Believe in Badgers, Matt Bernstein, he works for the UW Foundation for raising money for the university. When the football team is bad, people want to give less money to the university as a whole. The financial implications of the football program are so massive to the university that I think you have to take a look at this beyond just athletics revenue, but university-wide revenue as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And that's when when I came out that I put on our board a handful of weeks ago, where I was told that Wisconsin conducted a study, or a professor within the school conducted a study, and the projected loss was north of $20 million. And I think another report came out and said it could be close to $280 million, that, Madison downtown, or whatever the scale of that is. And that obviously, like you talked about, Matt, bleeds into the university as well, right? I mean, when you have a good football team, you see the applications rise, and just the entire atmosphere, the environment of the campus is just healthier, right? And it's healthier money-wise as well. So there's a lot of things that goes into that, not things that are probably first and foremost on Chris McIntosh's mind, but they should be for Jennifer Mnookin, correct? I think McIntosh first needs to get the football program correct and then Manukin can look at big picture, but yeah, there's just so much that is intertwined here. And the message on Thursday certainly doesn't make anyone feel better. I think that's another, maybe get a PR intern to really take a look at the messaging and how messages are delivered and everything that kind of goes into that as well.
I think you need more than an intern, John. I think you need an actual PR
or a firm.
firm.
I pronounced intern wrong. I meant firm.
Yeah, I think you meant firm because intern implies student. And I think you're going to need someone who's got a little bit more experience and expertise in PR handling that. Let's flip it over to this game, though, this weekend, specifically recruiting. With Coach Fickell coming back, there is going to be, some steadiness in place there at the head coaching position. Wisconsin has 4 official visitors this weekend, kind of late in the season, especially for 26 visitors. But, there have been a couple defections from this class, and there are spots that they need to fill, John. So they've got Azel Banog from South Carolina, Julian Peterson, a corner out of New Jersey, or I should say a defensive back. I think they might like him at safety as well. Xavier Stinson, a wide receiver out of Florida, and Quantavius Wiggins, who's currently committed to FIU, running back out of Georgia. I think, to me, that was the most surprising one of the 4 to see coming to campus, because, it's been Amari Latimer forever. I don't know if this means that Latimer is waffling more. I don't know if this means that they feel like they need to take 2 running backs in this class because of, lack of depth at the position. But out of these 4 guys, sort of what stands out to you?
Yeah, well, you go right away to that need at safety, right? And the 2 defensive backs that you mentioned project to that safety position. Now, whether Wisconsin gets either of them kind of remains to be seen. Peterson's visit a little bit more unique, where he's got a game tomorrow. He's going to fly up and spend some time in Wisconsin, then go the next day. That doesn't feel great, right? I mean, that's kind of putting Wisconsin at a disadvantage to go around in that way. I'm sure someone will comment, well, at least he doesn't have to see the game. I get that joke's kind of setting itself up there, right? But you look at Banog, it's a guy that they've been on a little bit longer. Wisconsin's there, Northwestern's there. I think he's going to take maybe 1 or 2 more visits after that. I feel a little bit better about him. Was committed to Harvard, so obviously the Wisconsin and Northwestern makes sense as he's going up, a level a little bit higher there. So they needed 2 safeties in this class. They don't have any. I think that's probably the first one. And then you look at Quantavius Wiggins, the running back. You can kind of choose to believe whatever messaging you want. That now all of a sudden Wisconsin wants to take 2 running backs. That wasn't the case for a very long time. I think you're smart in getting a guy up, whether you take 1 or you take 2. Amari Latimer's visited Ohio State officially, and in a couple hours, he's going to be at Tennessee, right? So you have to have a plan there. If you get them both, well, fantastic, right? I mean, bring both, sign them both, get them both on campus and everything that goes into that. But, if you dive a little bit deeper, I think people looked at, just kind of the cliff notes on Wiggins. It's, he's committed to FIU. This is a plan B guy. But I mean, you dig a little bit further, you look at that senior tape. It's awfully impressive. He's got, as he's taken a visit to Florida State, I believe Auburn's in the mix there. So there's some big time programs. He's just kind of falls in that late bloomer category. So I think if you're Wisconsin, you'd be thrilled if you could add him to this class, regardless of what happens to Latimer. Obviously, Latimer's arguably the biggest piece to this, but Wiggins would be a nice guy to add, whether you do have Latimer or not. And then you look at that last spot, they're looking for a 3rd receiver in this class. Stinson's likely at top of their board. Illinois may be their top competitions there, although Iowa's there, a couple other schools as well. But another thing that you did say at the beginning, Matt, was this is not super common, right? I mean, the last handful of cycles, Wisconsin's largely been done by late July. And then you've seen maybe 1, 2 guys come up for an official visit during the fall. Now you got 4 this weekend with 4 weeks of football left. And signing day is earlier this year. It's December 3rd. So we're talking less than a month away. A lot of work to get guys, a lot of work, probably even more to keep guys. It's going to be a wild November because, like I said, they're trying to secure guys to bring in, but also keep what's committed there. The Luke Fickell news, I think, will help in terms of clarity and the messaging, but it's going to be a wild November, Matt.
It is. And, with Peterson coming in, he's going to be there on a Sunday. Take him to the volleyball game. They got a big game against Indiana on Sunday. That crowd is always rocking.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely,
you got to take them to something. I would take them to the volleyball game, see a team that's perennial power.
Yep. Not disagreeing there.
Let's go to the hardwood quickly, though. Wisconsin wins their opening game against Campbell. Kind of a slow start. Came on strong in the second half. John, what was your biggest takeaway from their opener? And then what are you looking for against Northern Illinois tonight?
Yeah, a little bit of a slow start. And then Campbell didn't score a field goal for the last 10 plus minutes. I mean, that's a pretty interesting stat to me as you go back. Early in the season, kind of working out some kinks. If you listen to Greg Gard talk, he's like, we have a lot of talented guys. Now we're just trying to put it all together, right? There's that Nick Boyd piece, which I think Wisconsin's still learning to play with. He is ultra quick with the ball in his hand, right? And you saw that in the exhibition. You saw that against Campbell. I think they're just going to continue to, have a little bit more comfort with each other playing in those spots. Austin Rapp is early returns have been pretty strong as a guy that can shoot from behind the arc. It's kind of exactly what you thought you were getting in him. But, you look to Northern Illinois tonight, digging a little bit deeper on them. They have 16 new guys on this roster from last year. I mean, that it's a complete overhaul, which is surprising. But then if you look at the world of college basketball, maybe not so surprising.
Look, even within the Big Ten, Iowa has 12, I want to say. Iowa's roster is completely turned over as well.
Yeah, but to just completely wipe it and start fresh, it's wild stuff. But then you look back and they went 6-25 last year, so maybe not a whole lot to kind of keep track of or to hold on to. Wisconsin, in a lot of these contests with not these high major schools, right? They're going to have a big advantage. You would think in the post, they start one guy that's 6'5" or taller. The Huskies do in a true freshman. So Wisconsin should have an advantage of the post. Favored by, I think, 25. I think Wisconsin wins comfortably tonight as they kind of continue on in this non-conference slate.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I want to see is how Nick Boyd and Blackwell, when he's bringing the ball up as well, are able to feed Nolan Winter. Because if they're going to go far this year, obviously you need that guard play, but I think you need Winter to be a real presence in the post, using that size that he has. Yes, he's able to, step back and pop out from range, but I think that if they're going to be, competitive moving down the stretch, especially into Big Ten play, there's a lot of really good bigs in the Big Ten this year, and you need him to be at that level.
Yeah, that's maybe one of the big picture questions is Nolan Winter a 4 who's being forced to play the 5? Or is he a 5 who is just kind of getting his feet under him as the true 5 in place of Stephen Krall? I tend to think he's a 4 playing a 5, but Wisconsin should have some ways to kind of potentially alleviate that. One is shooting the basketball, right? If you could bring Nolan Winter out as your 5 and he can shoot it probably as well as just about any 5 in the country, that bodes well for you. Maybe those Garlock minutes allows Winter to go to the 4, although I don't know how much Garlock's going to play. Bialuskas, he looks rough on the defensive end, but I think that his offensive skills are a little bit more, advanced in comparison to a guy like Garlock. So they're thin down there, but that's not breaking news. You knew that when the roster was constructed. So it's going to be, I think, a lot of contests of can Wisconsin outscore them? And I think most nights they might be able to, but if that 3 is cold, you're going to see some games that maybe weren't as competitive on paper turn out to be a little bit tighter down the stretch than you would have anticipated.
All right, well, let's wrap up here today, like we usually do, at least in the fall, talking a little Wisconsin high school football. We're in now to the third round of the playoffs. Biggest takeaway from the second round for me was the absolute beatdown that Bayport put on Milwaukee Reagan. And that was one that I picked last week. I was very happy about that. I'm usually pretty high on Bayport, and I think that they're going to keep rolling. Their matchup with Franklin this weekend is going to be a good one, but we're pretty chalky for the most part, except for De Pere. De Pere continues on their run. They beat Neenah in the first round, Hudson in the second round, and that 7 seed now takes on, I think, the team that you probably like the most in Wanakee.
Yeah, De Pere's kind of on that magic carpet ride, led by Ben Strickland, a name that Wisconsin fans will obviously remember. They get by Neenah, like you talked about, get by Hudson, Go up against Wanakee, led by Wisconsin commit, preferred walk-on McCoy Smith. He's been an absolute monster. They've just kind of turned him loose now and said, hey, it's the playoffs. Let's just start handing you the football.
There's no reason not to. He's a little tank.
Right. And that's kind of where he projects for Wisconsin. I think that fullback position, we got a chance to talk to him. Outside of that, very chalky Muskego Badger, that game could be done in 90 minutes. Two teams that will likely not pass the football tonight. That one could get you home in bed by 9 o'clock. Franklin Bayport, like you talked about. Now, Franklin's going to be without Dominic Walters. They're kind of everything safety. He plays safety, plays some H-back, running back for them. He punts for them. That was a big loss that they had last round against Verona. And then you have a rematch, Arrowhead Hamilton down in that other quadrant there. Some really, really good matchups in D1. You go over to D2. Hey, maybe check out Wisconsin's newest 2027 offer. Kingston Allen from Green Bay, Notre Dame. They're taking on Rice Lake. I mean, he is putting up some absolute video game numbers as well. So if you want to see a guy that Wisconsin's focused on in 27, maybe turn into that Green Bay Notre Dame game tonight. Homestead, Monona Grove, West Appear, Union Grove. I mean, there's some real fun. I mean, you're in level 3, Matt. There's going to be good games. Divisions everywhere. 1 through 7. So fun night. Hopefully that internet's all geared up to its highest level. You can stream as many of these games as you possibly can.
Just D1 bracket really quick. Do you still feel like it's a collision course between Wanakee and Muskego?
I do. I feel like I think if I was going to take a team right now, it'd be Muskego. They just seem to kind of get hot at the right time. I mean, they looked really good last week against Racine Case. They would be hard to pick against. Wanakee Arrowhead is a potential matchup there. I don't want to discount De Pere. I don't want to discount Hamilton. But if Arrowhead won that game, I would not be surprised. If you saw an Arrowhead-Muskego matchup in the D1 finals, a rematch to a game that Arrowhead won in the regular season, they gave Muskego their only loss. So that would be certainly an interesting rematch there. But Franklin's there as well. We'll see how Franklin responds. If they can regroup, they've had the week to work without Walters. I mean, they're just really, really solid at just about every spot. So I can't wait to see how it unfolds. You're probably not going to have a bad state title game at Wisconsin, or I should say at Camp Randall, coming up here in a couple weeks at that D1 level.
I want to see a semifinal of Bayport and Muskego. I've been riding the Bayport train here for a little while. I really like just how that program has been run over the past 5-10 years. I think that they are one of the more consistent programs in the state, even if they're not drawing from the most talented areas in the state. And I think that, we've seen them put out guys like Noah Gauthier and others who have been, high D1 prospects. But I feel like as a team that they are just able to overcome whatever is put in front of them. And so it would not surprise me at all if they beat Franklin this weekend and, are headed to the semis next week.
Hey, and that's not, Badger, I had to kind of do a double check at them, take a look at their scores. They haven't been in a lot of close contests this year. A lot of those games they're winning comfortably. Let's not count them out. I will not bet against Mosquito tonight, but let's not count Badger out. They're not getting talked about enough, probably.
Well, I think we could talk about this for days, but it's Friday. We're going to let everyone tuning in here get on with their day. We got to get on with ours as well, but we'll be back again next week with Nick Osen again. But we appreciate everyone tuning in here to the Badger247 show on the 247 Sports Network. Make sure you are subscribing to Badger247.com for all the best intel from John and Nick and Payne. The best message boards you're going to find, the most active message boards you're going to find, that is for darn sure. It is more than a full-time job to keep up with those. So I do not envy you and Nick for the amount of time that you guys have to put in on those boards. Listen, I'm there plenty, but I'm not nearly as maybe active a poster as some of the other guys are. But nonetheless, you should be checking those out. So again, appreciate everyone tuning in. And until next time, see you on the boards.